impact of the media on people, and then two, the issue of representation and so on, and even issues of access, because children, as much as anyone else, have got educational, informational, and even social-emotional needs that the media can serve, that the media can satisfy for them. So issues of access therefore become important. But for me, the most important issue when we talk about children and the media, the first issue for me is the impact of the media on children. Yeah, how does the media impact on children? And from our keynote presentation, this issue came out very, very clearly. When you are watching television or listening to radio or reading newspapers, what is the impact of taking a certain newspaper that brings out certain details, certain details, whether they are, they concern aspects of social life or problems in society? What is the impact of taking such print home and so on? And what is the impact? What is the impact of these materials on the children? Now, the concerns over media content in relation to children can be located in the early debates about the media, about the effects of the media on people as consumers. And these debates are not medieval debates. They are just like 1 century ago, especially at the advent of the 20th century, when at the onset of mass media production, because improvements in printing and the spin-offs from the Industrial Revolution, and therefore better economies and the need for people to know about the opportunities that existed in other parts of the world, necessitated that information should travel much faster and be spread more widely. So there was more demand for information. And therefore, as newspapers, because there were only newspapers at that time, as newspapers and magazines began to be produced en masse, especially in the United States and certain parts of Europe, the debates began about the impact of the content of the media on the people that consume media products. And so there have been broadly 3 phases of media research on media effects. The early phase that lasted from about 1900 to 1930 returned results that talked about the all-powerful media, the hypodermic needle theory of media effects. That, in other words, the media were very, very powerful, and that people who controlled the media controlled all aspects of the lives of citizens in that particular jurisdiction. Before too long, the research results were challenged. People said, but really, do I have to follow what newspapers say? Do they have as much impact as this research has made it out to be? And so there was a second phase of research, especially based on election results in the immediate aftermath of the Second World War in the United States. Because at that time, the media were trying to direct the elections to influence the election results towards a certain direction, and the people did not vote the way the media had predicted. And so that phase of research returned a completely different verdict, that the media actually did not have any influence on people. Print your newspapers, say whatever you want to say on radio, and television then was still in its nascent stages, and radio as well. The coming of television, of course, changed a lot of things, and subsequent technological developments have also reviewed our thinking about what the media can do and what it cannot do. One, television was very, very important, because for the first time, you had a medium that could combine could combine three senses: sight, sound, and motion. And that was quite significant, because if you are listening, seeing somebody, and feeling their movement, you are likely to be more affected than merely listening to someone, or just reading about something that happened yesterday, and that was it. So television changed the entire media terrain in very, very significant ways. And of course, following on to television was, of course, the internet. The internet, you know, has also changed our lives in a lot of ways. It has changed the manner in which journalism is practiced. It has also changed the manner in which journalism training is done. It has changed our entire lives. The effects here may not be as fundamental, but in most of the rest of the world, the internet has had very profound changes on people's ways of life. So, therefore, later and contemporary research has established that the media can also be an immense source of influence on human understanding and behavior. And you will note that even critical theorists like Murdoch and Golding acknowledge that the products from the cultural industries assist people to make sense of the world in which they live. Now, children are a special audience, and programming for them raises a number of unique issues. Because children are not adults, they, in principle, they don't take their own decisions, and they are dependent on a lot of other people to find their way forward. So, therefore, programming for them must take into account the special cognitive, emotional, and development needs of the children as a unique audience. And therefore, when we talk about children programming, we must be clear about how this content for children is created, is marketed, is distributed, and is also critiqued. And a lot of people have stated that the media, like art or literature, reflects the cultural concerns, societal trends, philosophical, moral, and religious beliefs, and reactions to world events. Yes, our cultural concerns, societal trends, and so on are part of the media, and so on. And content in the media often reflects societal changes and is also quite often about the balance between regulation, concerns of citizens, and the reactions of the industry that produces that content. So there are three considerations here. That on the one hand, you have the concerns of the citizens. So when you produce content for children, you must bear in mind that they are concerns of the citizens. Because as I told you, there is a central question here. How do we ensure that children access the media? Because they should, and that should be a requirement, but they do not get hurt in the process. So our concerns are, as citizens, that children should access the media because they are part and parcel of our society, and they are actually the future of the society. That is one. Two, but they should only access that information that is helpful to them and does not damage, that does not hurt them. Then, of course, there are also concerns of the industry. The industry also wants to make money. And so, between these two blocks now, you also have issues of regulation. Because regulation should ideally help us to ensure that, one, the concerns of the citizens are addressed, and that, two, the industry is also protected in order to remain in business as a going concern. What I want to just move on to state, I have very little time, is that children have always been the focus of broadcasting for basically two reasons. One, that children are consumers of broadcast material in their own right. But secondly, and this should be emphasized, is that because children also influence their families' purchasing choices. I'm sure those of you who have children sometimes have been implored by the children to buy certain things because they saw them on television or had them on radio or saw them in the newspapers. Yes, and as Nyamunjo has stated, children can also arm twist parents and guardians service their consumer instincts. Yes, so while media can be helpful in help children in adapting to changing society, there is always a negotiation between the desire to shape children's programming around children's educational, informational, and social-emotional needs on the one hand, and the perpetuation of the media industry as a business on the other. And that sometimes clouds everything that we are trying to do. The problem with us in Africa is twofold. One, that because of lack of resources, African broadcast media are susceptible to foreign programming, actually excessive foreign programming. And then secondly, foreign content is often rated to be superior to locally produced content. People are more likely to consume foreign content because they think it is either trendy or has been produced in a better manner than locally produced content, and so on. And this has implications for children in a lot of ways. The cartoons children watch, are they really, are they helpful to the children in the long run? Or are we producing children and socializing them in a manner to admire, what happens elsewhere in the world and discard what really exists for them in their own communities? Yes, the most writers I have researched talk about this dilemma, that a lot of times we produce children and young people that are deficient with a fascination for image and consumption, or what we normally refer to as consumerism, and for mimicking things foreign, especially American, because of what they especially watch on television. And of course, they are not Americans. So, for me, we need to ask and seek answers in broadcast programming for African children in this era of dual concerns of commerce and culture. And I have put down just 5 questions which I want to run through before I sit down. The first question would be, and the people from UBC and other television stations are here, what is the right broadcast content for African children? What should African children be watching on our televisions for children, in terms of children programming? How do we deal with the limitations to access to broadcast content for the majority of the children in Africa? Issues of access, issues of the nature of content. Thirdly, how do we balance the desire to shape children's programming around children's needs against the business interests of media houses? How can we achieve a fair balance between what we need to do in terms of children's educational and informational and social emotional needs against the interests of the media houses, who must remain as going concerns in terms of business? Yes, that was the third. Fourthly, is it possible that African children might desire and consume the same broadcast content as Western children, but read different meanings into that content and react to it differently? Because we can't close ourselves to the rest of the world, but when we broadcast foreign content for children, which is also consumed by children in the other parts of the world, how can such children then read different meanings into that content, the meaning that is useful to them, and also react to it in the way that they should, being African children? And then lastly, what do we have to say about children's actions and identities inspired by drawing from multiple cultural repertoires, you know. Yes. Thank you very much.